trying to film this video and my cat's like, how about you let me sleep, huh? However, today we are going to do a balanced review. First of all, can we appreciate how awesome this is? Like this whole, like everything. And I'm going to start with the positive because that is what I loved about the movie. It's the visuals, and that is what I often really appreciate about movies in general, their visual style and the photography itself. And to all the people who didn't get it and think that the movie is smart because it doesn't spell it out, please stop, okay? I believe in you. Stop. The movie is a commentary about sex work and about women's power. It is rooted in the assumption that that's just how it is. Nothing changes for her at the end. And I know what you're gonna say. She cries, and the emotional evolution, and the man, she trusts the man. She becomes emotionally vulnerable in front of a guy, and that is her great evolution. Excuse me, that is fucking insulting. Especially because it's the guy who half an hour ago restrained her and gagged her. And now she cries in his arms. And that is her great evolution. That is her plot, her story arc, her character development. At the end, they joke, they're in the house, and they joke that he only did all this stuff because she was crazy. And he just tried to get her to not hurt herself. And she's like, oh yeah, haha, I guess I'm crazy as well, or touche, or whatever the fuck she says. Basically agreeing with him. He calls her crazy. That's why he restrained her, because she was just so crazy. And she's like, yeah, haha. She agrees. She's fine. She's chilling with the guy because, you know, while he did grab her and tie her and gag her, at least he didn't rape her, you know? The whole nice guy narrative, I can't, you know? It is a fairy tale. And I don't mean the Cinderella fairy tale that they spell out in the movie of her being in this fairy tale fantasy and then it all breaking down. And that is actually the reality that we live in, you know, women and men and the fairy tale fantasy. And actually it's not like this. It's not that. It's the fairy tale of how women view men. This movie presents a fairy tale perspective of how women view men. Because it's not real, and it just lands so sour, and it's not funny, and it's not deep, it's disgusting, and it's uncomfortable to see this in a movie that then goes ahead and wins 5 Oscars.
Editing me here, I would have preferred that Demi Moore got Best Actress, but Maggie Madison also did absolutely deserve it.
She went to strip clubs. She observed how it all happens. She got dances. She talked to the people there. She understood what it is about. She brought so much honesty and so much truth in her performance that the whole story did not account for. Do you know why the story doesn't account for it? Because the whole movie, she just goes along with it. But it's fine. It's fine because she's sassy and she can punch a guy. Yeah, so then it's fine. Acting, the whole story, acting as if this is not an absolutely horrific situation to be in, to be fucking kidnapped, to be restrained against your will. But no, it's funny. I mean, making that whole 40-minute scene where she is, first of all, half naked, and then she is bound, like restrained physically, and then tied her hands behind her back, and she's sitting, and this is framed and made in the style of comedy. It's not funny. This is not funny. A woman would never make such a thing, would never put this horrible fear that every woman has into a comedy. This is not funny. And you know, I understand. This could have been amazing because you would take something so visceral, so important, so real, so problematic because it's happening every day, and you would add comedy to this, not just to the story of her being restrained against her will, but the entire story of her being a sex worker, her trying to find a different life. Combine this reality and realism with comedy. This is an amazing idea. This could have been so good. This could have been tragic and comic and touched at the heartstrings. It did not fucking touch me because this is not funny. You cannot. And you know why? It's because she was objectified the whole way through. She was sitting there in such a sexualized position, like she is bound and then gagged. And that's supposed to be funny. There's that scene where they wrestle and grapple, and this is supposed to be slapstick comedy. You know, I have been in such a situation in my life. It was not fucking funny. And that delivery of that scene, not from the actors, but from the directing, it was not appropriate. It was uncomfortable. It was inappropriate. It should not have been portrayed this way. And me saying that I have encountered such situations is not even supposed to give me any kind of special credibility, because most women have. And that is my problem with this movie, because this is such a predominant and real issue that almost every woman encounters in her life. And then this movie portrays it like this. And it's lauded as being feminist. I have actually heard this commentary saying it's kind of playful, kind of funny. They tie her hands, and then one guy suggests that they tie her legs as well. And in that moment, her screaming and protesting becomes earnest. And that emotional delivery of that line of no, no, and the scared tone in her voice at the prospect of having her legs tied as well. And one is left to wonder, what could have made someone so averse to having their legs tied?
Editing me here, I'm trying to provide more clarity because I was enraged to the point of incoherence for a lot of the video, but especially here. This review is made by a guy, by the way. It has this suggestion that when it was just her hands that were being held, that it was still playful. This is out of touch and incredibly insensitive. She is overpowered in that moment. And to claim that she's not that scared, it reveals a complete ignorance to women's reality of living in fear, of exactly this thing happening to them. They live in fear, with this particular fear, because empirically they see it, because empirically it happens. They see sexualized physical abuse, they are not believed, it goes unpunished, and then they get blamed for it on top of that. This is the reason that she doesn't want neither her hands nor her feet tied. And to have a man imply that one is not as bad as the other, I have no words for it.
Through all of this anger and indignation, there is a sliver of disappointment in me, because it could have been so great. Oh, I can see through all this bullshit. I can see the great idea, the very important story that is somewhere there that was spoiled. This whole movie, telling a unique women's disempowerment story, is tainted by the objectifying and sexualizing and dehumanizing male gaze. And I'm gonna say that again. This whole movie is spoiled by the fact that it's filtered through, like, the story and the portrayal in general, by this dehumanizing, objectifying, and sexualizing male gaze. Okay. In the scene where they gag her, they bring her this red scarf that they gag her with because she was screaming. And then some 5 minutes later, where she's just been shown this whole scene, it takes fucking 30 minutes of the movie and nothing happens. Nothing happens. She's just sitting there. They're portraying her close up, side, mid shot, everything of her being in her underwear, being tied with her hands behind her back, and this fucking red scarf gagged around her mouth, and she's just sitting there. And these men are walking around doing their thing for 10 minutes within a 30-minute scene that is just that, and nothing happens in it. What? How can I see that and be like, oh yeah, there's a point here? There's no fucking point. They don't make any plot point, as in something happens, something needs to happen, which is why she has to be gagged in that way, no less. Nor is it making any metaphorical, symbolic story, character perspective. It's not. It is absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's just disgusting. They are like, okay, we'll cut you a deal. I am going to remove this gag if you promise to not scream. And because they have had her tied up for so long, she agrees. She gives in. Her will breaks. Her will to resist them breaks. But it's formulated in such a way, well, then she realizes that they're on the same page. They want to find this guy. So, she then agrees to work with them. How? Tell me, okay? Just for a second, okay? Tell me, how is this not absolutely humiliating? You know what? I've sat here tied and gagged and I've thought about it, and it makes sense. I can see where they're coming from. And I was watching it and I kept coming back to Maxine, and it's one of my favorite movies. In moments like these, it's the favorite movie. And quick side note here, if you're gonna tell me that Maxine is this like fun flick just for entertainment, not this deep story that Anora is trying to tell, it's a great fucking story, okay? It's great plot, it's a great character, great set, great props, everything. And on top of that, it is personally resonant with me. It's a disempowered woman. She is taking control of her life. She is overcoming and fighting literal murderers. This is amazing. And I'm going to embrace this personal perspective. And I recommend that you do as well. Because what do you think? These movie reviewers that are all like, yeah, we want like intellectual, yeah, a point of this. Most of them are men, straight, white, cis men. And do you think that they do not have their own perspective, that they absolutely bring into their reviews and in their preferences? And the stories that are being told and reviewed and acclaimed, of course they'll bring their personal perspective. So how about we bring ours? And Maxine, she is also a sex worker. She's a porn star, in fact. She has the same sassy, wounded deep down fighter, confident personality that Anora or Annie has or is trying to portray. She's in revealing scenes. At no point is she objectified. Even in X, where there is a much more revealing, that whole movie, actually watch it, it's amazing. But there's, with Maxine in particular, there is a scene that's much more revealing, in my opinion, than any scene that we have in Anora. And yet, she is not objectified and dehumanized and humiliated. She always maintains her self-possession and her power, even as she is a victim of those circumstances. And this is the kind of story that a man should tell. I mean, just imagine. The idea is so powerful. You have a story, a tragic story, about victimhood and power, and it has an element of comedy in it. It's amazing, it's genius, and yet the execution is so poor, and it's because he doesn't fucking get it. This character chooses to spend the night in the house where she had a very traumatic event with the guy who had the most visceral part in it. Are you fucking insane? Like, maybe there's a need of a diagnosis here. And Mikey was amazing, and all the work and the dedication that she put into this role is one thing, and her acting skills are a whole other thing. She brought such truthfulness and intensity to this character and to this performance. She had the right perspective, but the script didn't allow for that perspective. It repeatedly made fun of her. Like even in that scene where she then ends up sitting on the vomited upon car seat. And we are supposed to, at the same time, empathize with what Annie or Nora is going through, which we can easily do because Mike is amazing, but then also at the same time, voyeuristically enjoy her being humiliated. So the whole scene, the whole 30-minute scene of her being restrained and gagged while she's half naked in this house, but 3 men around her. Totally, very funny scene, right? Very funny. This made me physically nauseous. Fast forward to them being outside and she's cold, and this guy who restrained her offers her the same scarf that they used to gag her. And then she reacts, of course, like, what the fuck? Why did you bring this? Did you want to gag me again? Fair question. Yeah. And then not 2 seconds pass before she's like, oh yeah, actually give me that. And then she wears the scarf for the rest of the movie. And then there's this idea that this was actually her taking the power back, and you know, she's trapped in this this like male story, and yeah, she is trapped in this male story. Yeah, she is. Oh, poor Igor, he was just doing a job. He was actually being nice to her, you know, because he offered her the gag to wrap herself in. Yeah, you know, he was otherwise just following orders. Then we have a cat fight. Yes, we must have a cat fight. You know, because I mean, let's be serious. There is no solidarity between women. Yeah, I mean, they're just always pitted against each other, especially when they're fighting over the attention and the money of men who benefit from them being objectified, men who abuse them even. Yeah, we must have a cat fight in a movie about sex work. This is humiliating, and not the catfight itself, and that this is the reality of things happening, but that you're making this movie, and we're watching this movie, and we see this, and we're like, yeah, that's feminist. This is humiliating, and I'm disgusted, and it's making me lose hope. And now let's move on to the ending, the much loved and speculated upon ending, which makes this movie totally deep, you know, because there's no soundtrack to the ending, a clear sign of a deep story. I've seen this argument that she does that at the end because of her transactional way of being, her nature, for whatever reason she sees human relations in this transactional way. I wonder why. Is it because of her job that taught her to see relationships in that way? Or is it just her innate way of seeing relationships, and that's why she also ended up in this job? So she takes the ring and she feels obliged to repay him. This is so clearly a male perspective. Clearly, it's painfully a male perspective on how sex workers perceive sex work. She was just brainwashed somewhere, somehow, to think that that's how relationships are. What it's saying in painting her psychological profile that way, it's saying that she just can't help it. She just has to provide sex work for money. That's, you know, that's how she is damaged. He's just so good and so gentle with her. It's because of the man who again restrains her. And because of that, she can finally embrace her emotions and her real self. Do you fucking see how ridiculously humiliating this is? And that's not even taking into account the whole larger context of this movie being considered feminist and winning 5 Oscars. Legit, I cannot see one logical way in which this isn't what I just explained it to be. This is not a movie about a woman who is objectified, who learns to see herself as an object, where that takes her how the patriarchal structures that brought her there, how they benefit from her being there. It's not a story about that. She just happens to be that way. And then we have this good man, this nice guy who doesn't rape her, even though he totally could have, but you know, he doesn't because he's a nice guy. He then gets her to abandon her wrong ideas, very strange wrong ideas about herself, and see herself then and feel, you know, vulnerable emotion, feel like a human again. This is putting the power back in the man's hands, treating her like this broken thing. And, you know, Mikey is bringing this human perspective, but it's in a story that is making her an object. One layer of it is that the story is literally backwards, where she begins as being the strong and sassy and confident woman and then ends with breaking down in the arms of a man and crying finally, because that's what women should do. They should not be angry and strong and asserting what they want and don't want to do. They should be gagged and bound and then end up crying in a man's arms. No, you can't be angry and disruptive. You should be weak and happy that at least he didn't rape you. This is backwards evolution. And I know that there's the other layer of it saying, yeah, it's emotional, but she was blocking and suppressing her emotions about her reality, and now because of this man who restrained her, but he was just following orders. Because of that, she can finally understand her emotions. Like, first of all, can we bring in a little bit of a wider societal context of how women are the ones doing the majority of emotional labor, who are even aware that such a thing as emotions exist, what they are, how they manifest, how to deal with them, because they have to also at the same time deal with men's emotions and work around them, because men can't fucking do that. And then you have this movie where she gets taught and gets led to her emotions by a man. And, you know, I am not against that kind of story. This, again, this itself is it's an element that I see. It could have been so great. This could have been amazing, but it's in a story that objectifies her. This is not the story we need. Maybe it is the story we need, but not told this way and not told by a guy who has no fucking idea about it. Where is the feminism? She takes the scarf that they gagged her with, and that is her taking the part. Miss me with that. You know what? Miss me with that. And it should not have been that way. It could have been so great. But I feel like I'm living in a parallel universe where I can see this being so wrong and so disturbing, and everybody else is just like, oh, this is so great. Can you tell me if you're also seeing it this way? And like, why? What is fucking happening? What is happening? I do really want you to share your perspective in the comments, because I am interested to see what you think. And while I know that half of this video was in a sarcastic tone, this genuinely baffled me how we are in this situation right now. And I know there's also the wider political context that contributes to it, but I'm also just interested in what you think. So yeah, I'll be curious to read your comments. And thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Not nearly as sleek as Jasper, but I'm getting there.